Hi everyone, good evening and welcome to our Maximise Sports Seminar. I'm delighted to be here tonight presenting our second Maximise Sports Seminar to you all, and the theme for this evening is mental health and exercise. So I'd like to thank you for coming here tonight. It's great to see you all, and I'm delighted that it's a nice evening outside, and I hope that you guys had a nice journey here. So we have two fantastic guests with us tonight who have both travelled long distances to be here to discuss their insights into mental health and exercise. We'll chat about their journeys and what has shaped them through life to the inspirational people we have sitting in front of us tonight. I'm delighted to introduce you to our first guest. She is an All-Ireland an All-Star and an All-Ireland winning goalkeeper with Kildare LGFA. This amazing lady has also received the first ever Christy Dignam Recovery Champion Award. Please give a huge Mayo welcome to our first mental health advocate of the night, Mary Hulgraine. Yeah. The mic is just behind you there, yeah. And up next is a man that probably ran halfway here. With his powerful, inspiring social media presence, our next guest speaks on his platform about two main things, should I say. One is running and the next is mental health. So it's no wonder that it was an absolute must to get him up here speaking about our theme of the night, which is exercise and mental health. Please give another Mayo welcome to Mr. Aidan Lucknan. So the aim of these Maximise Sports Seminars is to inspire, educate and empower people in sport to break down any limitations that they may have, to reach their fullest potential in their sporting careers. This includes athletes of any level, elite, social or up and coming. It also includes sports professionals, sports coaches and parents of people in sport. These Maximise Sports Seminars open up real life, honest conversations with people in sport and exercise to empower the audience to gain a deeper understanding into the lives of athletes and how the path to success, as I said in my previous Maximise Sports Seminar, is not always straight. For we aim to empower, educate and inspire athletes, sports professionals and parents to build an awareness around the power of the mental game and why skills such as confidence, resilience, perseverance, motivation, honest communication and many, many more are just as important as the skills you learn in the arena. Over the past number of years, I have worked with individuals, various teams and groups of people. But the beginning, I suppose, of 2020, when the world was shutting down, myself and my brother and our friends Michael and Siobhan from Autonomy Nutrition, should I say, set up Ladies Lifestyle Academy. So our Ladies Lifestyle Academy consisted of personal trainers who were Mikey and Michael, a sleep coach, Mikey, and a nutritionist, Siobhan, and myself as the mindset and performance coach. We worked with over 80 ladies on the program that was completely online, and many of those ladies joined the program with the main topic being weight loss and how much they wanted to lose weight. Many ladies were suffering with their mental health, but used weight loss as a mask. So some of them sat outside the gyms for hours and then turned around and went home without actually walking into the gym. Many more ladies absolutely hated the way they looked, and some of them even went as far as covering up mirrors in their houses. And some even brought themselves, throughout the programs, we saw ladies completely transform, not so much their bodies in terms of weight loss, but their mental health in terms of feeling good in their own skin. We saw that being involved in a group, although completely online for the most part, those ladies started doing exercise and activities, and they never dreamed possible when they first started. At the end of the programme, we had a graduation night where all the graduates got dressed up and sat in their rooms on Zoom and toasted to each one's success. These ladies were toasting their efforts, the exercise activities that they had achieved, such as cycling, doing 5Ks, doing 10Ks. 2 of our graduates went on to do the Dublin Marathon. And they spoke of how they loved to play football with their families outside in the gardens and how they loved themselves again and gave themselves time to exercise, which that was the biggest part for them. They gave themselves the time. Very few spoke on the last night about their weight loss. The benefits of exercise are endless. I know for my own mental health, I need to balance my exercise routine as well. But when I first started out on my business venture, I lost track of that. I often thought I needed to do so much work and then wouldn't have time or energy for taking part in exercise. So now, as soon as I feel any way off track, I get myself back on by getting out, getting a pair of runners on and getting out for a run. How many of you have loved going to every single training session or walk or run that you have ever done? You're an exception. Sometimes we have to push ourselves. Like last Friday, I suppose I was leaving here at about 7 o'clock, and I was looking out at the dark evening, and it was raining quite heavily here. And all I kept thinking about was the fact that I had to go training at 8 o'clock. I reluctantly put on my gear, boots, and 2 minutes into the training session, I remember saying, I love training in the rain. During exercise, our body releases endorphins, serotonin, and dopamine, which help to improve our mood, but they have been shown to help reduce the symptoms of depression, stress, anxiety, and to increase confidence and self-esteem. So put simply, going into a training session, sometimes you're feeling the pain receptors, kind of sorry for ourselves, etc. And as soon as we start to exercise, endorphins, serotonin, and dopamine are released, which give us that happy feeling. You know the saying, the only workout that you'll ever regret is the workout that you didn't do. And I know, had I sat on my couch last Friday evening and not gone training, I'd have sat there regretting every minute of watching whatever movie or TV show that I was watching, and I would regret not having gone to training. So sometimes we just have to push ourselves outside of our comfort zones to get to those places, to make ourselves feel good, feel happy, and feel content in who we are and in what we do. So, just one more, I suppose, fact for you. Did you know that 1 hour workout is only 4% of our day? So what we do with the other 96% is entirely up to us, but you surely deserve to give yourself at least 1 hour every day, at least 4% every day. So with all that being said, I'm going to stop talking, and I'm going to let Mary do a little bit of talking now. So, Mary, thank you very much for being here, first of all. It's an absolute pleasure having you here, and I know that you had quite a journey from Kildare to Castlebar.
Yeah, thanks for having me down. It's an honour and a privilege always to be able to come and talk, so thank you.
No problem at all. So, I suppose, Mary, if you just kind of start off by telling us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, my name is Mary Hulgraine. What's my introduction? I'm a Kildare woman. I play football with Kildare. I'm 35. I live in the Curragh there. I have 4 dogs, 3 chickens. I live a simple life. I like doing talks and speaking around with schools and kids, and just around mental health. And I'm a big advocate for mental health and recovery. I share my own story with addiction and where I am in life now with recovery. To try and encourage or try and help anyone really in any way that my journey can help somebody. And that's really who I am, yeah.
Very good, very good. So 4 dogs and 3 chickens, and you said that you live a simple life.
I do. Well, I got a puppy about 2 months ago, and life just became a lot more complicated.
Yeah. I bet. So I suppose let's go back to the start. And were you into sport as a child? Like, was young Mary into sport, or how did you get into it?
Yeah, even one of probably the earliest photographs I have is I'm only barely walking and I have a football on my feet. And a lot of my photos, even I have a couple of photos from growing up, but I always had a Peter Schmeichel jersey on me. Okay. So I was just Man United mad. And my brother was always Leeds. And just loved playing football, yeah. GA, not so much, but it was always just soccer. Just loved being out in the green playing football with the boys. Always thought I had a bit of a chip on my shoulder because the boys were older and bigger, and I was the only girl that did that kind of in my estate. And yeah, just sport, I was just free. I was able to be myself. I was able to be present. And I grew up in a council estate in Kildare, in Salins, in St. Bridget's Terrace, and I always love saying that as well because the people in St. Bridget's Terrace are great, and they've always been great to me. Like, and I just loved it. Yeah, it's just simple. Out in the crack, playing tip to can, playing bulldog, playing football. Simple life, like really grown up, but just sport mad. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I suppose so. You started off kind of loving soccer. Is that it?
Yeah.
And then how did basketball come around?
Yeah, it was always football, and then I was made go play Gaelic football, and I kind of hated that because I was made go play it, and I knew I just loved playing soccer. But I went to secondary school, and I was asked to go to a training session one Saturday morning for a team called the Cool Cats in Naas, and I was really small as a kid. I was always very short, and I took a bit of a sprout then when I was maybe about 15, and I didn't want to go. You just didn't sprout, did you not? And I went into that session and I wasn't the best, and I didn't want to go back because when I played, wherever I played, I was always the best playing football. Like, and didn't want to go back. And I went back the second week. I was brought, and I just fell in love with it. But like, my love for basketball was completely different than anything I've probably ever played. Like, I was obsessed with basketball, and I love football, and I love football today. Like, I play Gaelic football still, but the love I got from playing, being out on a court, like just doing tricks and just scoring, like it was a freedom that I can't ever describe. I just became obsessed with the sport, like and that was from first year, yeah. So I was 11, just going into first year. I was young enough, like. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. And so when you started off in basketball, then did you ever think that you could see yourself like going to where you did with basketball?
No, I just kind of went in on a Saturday just to play, and then it was my second year. I went to a camp down in Waterford it was the Dungarvan basketball camp. I don't think it's still going, but I went there for the first year and I played. And the second year I went back, then they wouldn't let me play. I had the coach because I was that good, like. But I was only maybe 12, 13, and I used to go down, and instead of paying for the camp, they used to get me to work there. But I didn't have to pay then. I stayed there for the 3 weeks, and there used to be scouts from America there, and I remember that was when a scout first said to me, "Geez, do you ever think about going and playing in America? Like, you're good enough." And it was just that little seed was planted. And I knew a guy from Kildare who had gone to a prep school in America. And I remember thinking back then, like, geez, if he can do it, like, why can't I? So that became an obsession. Yeah. I just brought a basketball everywhere. Like, I was going to school, dribbling a basketball. I was out during school when I was supposed to be in class on the courts. I was sleeping at night time, just flicking the ball up. When I was sitting, it was always just handling, always trying to be the best I could. Like, just didn't put it down. Yeah, in a way, like it was probably. I struggled when I was a teenager, especially fitting in and stuff. I don't know. I always felt a bit different. But when I was playing basketball, it was me. It was me. The basketball was almost my best friend. Like, I didn't have to try and be something. I was just able to be me. Like, and kept going back to that camp, and then I used to record my games, my school games, and I had to make a tape. So the VHS tapes, I had to make a highlight reel, and then I had to get one full game recorded where I played great. And so I sent them off, and I remember I was at home, I had about maybe 20 or 30 of these brown envelopes, and all these tapes I had copied. I put them in the envelopes, send them off to maybe 30 different schools in the States. A couple of them, the coaches had already given me a bit of contact with. And I said, look, let them fly, something will come back.
Yeah.
And so this was my third year in school, and I was in transition year then. I did that because I was a bit younger. And I remember in transition year, 2 schools came back to me. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is happening, like. and I kept sending over tapes, and it was like there was no social media. Like
Right.
this was when I was like this 20 years ago. Like, and like you had to send a letter or a tape or an email.
And wait for it to
it would be about a month before something would come back. Like it was very different. Like, but I remember I was in a guidance counsellor in school then in 6th year, and we were trying to sort out my life, what you want to do. And I remember saying to me like you need. I was saying I want to go to America. That's what I'm doing. That's the plan. Like, and I was organising sitting SAT exams, and I didn't want to sit the Leaving Cert.
Okay.
And because I had no interest in school. Like, it wasn't that I didn't try. Like, maybe I didn't try because I wasn't the best at that either. But I just had no interest in it. Like, and I set the SAT exams, and I told her, I said, I'm going to America. And I remember telling her, no, you can't. You need to go to college in Ireland. You need to get a real job, and you need to stop fantasising. And I come home one day, and I remember the bags. My mother, like, she had her good and bad days, but we laugh about it now. But there was the black bags were at the door, but they were always at the door. And she says, no, you have to leave today because you're not handing up money, you're not working.
Yeah.
And I said, grand. And this happened loads of times before, but you were always let back in a couple hours later. And I just said, this day I'm gone. So I went in and moved in with a mate, and then I moved up to Belfast, and I was up in Belfast playing basketball for about 9-10 months. And I was coming through Queen's University, and I remember getting a phone call. I'd only got a mobile up there, and I remember getting a phone call from a coach in a university in Connecticut, and he just said, look, I need you here in 2 days. Your scholarship is here. It's a full ride scholarship for 4 years.
Wow.
And I headed over 2 days later, yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing. And at that time, like, was that just your goal? Was that the only thing that you wanted at that time?
Yeah, well, if you asked me what I was doing, I was going to the NBA to play professional basketball. Like,
okay.
Yeah, I was away with fairies, like, when you look back, but I was a dreamer. But sure, look, you have to be a dreamer, really, don't you? Like, but I was just, I drank when I was 12 for the first time, puked everywhere, hated it. Seen addiction growing up, seen it in the family and the devastation it caused. Touched drugs when I was 15 for the first time, and only for a coach pulled me back. And I had no interest in fellas, drinking, partying, any of that crack. Just wanted to play basketball. And I was so driven, like, you could never tell me no. If you told me no, I'd go and do something. I'd take the picture and I'd send it to you and say, there you go, I'm after doing it. Like, I was so driven, like.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was over there, and it all changed, yeah.
Wow, absolutely class. And you said, let's just go back a little bit. I suppose you said there, Mary, that you never really felt like you fitted in when you were growing up. What was that like for you? Was that in school, or was that more in school, or more when you were playing sport? Where did that kind of?
It was
feed
kind of both in a way. Like, when I was growing up, like, and you were a girl that played sport, like, not really people did that. Like, there was no girls teams. It was boys teams until I was, I think, 15 or 16.
Okay.
And like, you were different because you played sport, but then I always struggled with my head. Looking back, like, and when I went to kind of look into it more, like, always struggled with my head.
Okay.
I was always like, I could be in a circle chatting away to people, but my head would be telling me, like, you don't belong here, you don't fit in, you don't deserve to be here. It was always there, that mad head, like the washing machine head that I always speak about. But I didn't like myself. I really didn't. Like, I hated myself. I hated myself really growing up, especially as a teenager. I hadn't a clue who I was, and I probably didn't have what other people had, and I always compared to other families and other people, and I wanted what they had, and I had awful resentments because I wasn't like them, and had all that going on as a teenager. So struggled, like, yeah.
How did you deal with it all?
Sport. That is the answer. Yeah, sport, yeah. And it was the only time all the noise in my head stopped, like, was when I was playing basketball. It's a very quick sport. You don't have a whole lot of time to think.
Yeah.
And now I'm a goalkeeper where you have all the time in the world to think, which doesn't make sense whatsoever. But with basketball, like, it's so reactive. And always had to be present. And yeah, just sport saved me. Like, it really, really did, yeah. I obsessed and put all my energies into it.
Yeah. And if you didn't have sport, what do you think? Do you think your life would have taken a completely different route?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. Because, like, when I was 15, I had a bad experience and I stepped away from sport, and it was only a couple of months, maybe 5 or 6 months.
Yeah.
And fell in with the wrong crowd, started playing with drugs.
Yeah.
And I liked the feeling of drugs.
Yeah.
Because they quite denied that was going on in my head.
Yeah.
They silenced it. And I got a feeling from them that I never really had in my life, which was love and acceptance and belonging. And I felt like I was able to fit in places.
Yeah.
And it was only for a coach. A coach in a time at a Dublin club said, no, listen, I'm going to come and collect you from your house. I'm going to drive you to Dublin because we didn't have a car around.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to drive you up. You're going to do your training session. I'm going to drop you back. And that man, he genuinely saved my life because I fell in with the wrong people. And I felt like I belonged though when I was taking drugs with that crowd. I felt like I belonged there.
Yeah.
My head was telling me I belonged there, but only for him, like, I definitely would have went down a very fast road of devastation a lot quicker.
Yeah. And then when you kind of transitioned out of the crowd that you thought you belonged with back into sport again, did you get that feeling that you belonged back there?
Yeah, the obsession was always there.
Yeah,
it was always there. And then I just thought I was getting buses and trains to wherever I had to go. There was no excuses then. Okay. And it wasn't because I didn't want to go to that life of hanging around with the crowd and taking drugs or drinking or whatever they were at. Something told me that, like, I had a dream and I was going to go do it. And I knew, I had this feeling inside me that that's what I wanted to do, like. And especially after the guidance counsellor telling me I couldn't do it. that really drove me on.
You.
Someone telling me that I couldn't do something, I was really thinking to myself, like, do you know what, that noise in the back of my head was, sir, you can't do that. I said, I'm going to show you, like.
We had one of our guests on in the last sports seminar as well, and she said the exact same thing. She had broken her leg in 4 places, I think, and somebody said, you'll never play again.
Yeah.
That is what drove her to getting back on the pitch and, you know, doing her recovery sessions and getting herself back there. Yeah.
Amazing.
But yeah, so it's amazing what motivates you.
Yeah. And I find motivation from a lot of different things today, and it's not driven by other people now. It's all driven from within. But at the time back then, it was, I wanted to get out of Ireland. I didn't want to be where I was, and I wanted to prove people wrong. That was my motivation then. Yeah. It's very different today, but back then, looking back now, that's what it was. Yeah.
And what was it like what age were you when you went to America?
17. Yeah.
What age was it? Or what was it like for a 17-year-old to get on that plane and go to America? Were you by yourself?
Yeah, I was always very independent though. I grew up very quick as a kid. I have an older brother, he's a year older. I have a younger sister, she's a year younger. Okay. We were always very close, but we grew up quick, like we had to. And I was always very independent. And in a way, that came to my disadvantage when I grew up because I did everything on my own. And I was very independent and strong, and I didn't like showing weakness. And eventually, playing the tape forward a good few years, when I had to ask for help, I couldn't because I had this image portrayed. Yeah. So, but that all was there. So when I went over, like, America was like what it was in the movies, when you see them having parties and red cups and all the crack. Like, that's what America, when I went over, that's what it was. And I was like, this is class. And in the dorms and all the different foods you see in the tellies, like Twinkies and all, it was exactly like that. Like, sure, I thought it was unreal. Didn't know what was going on. I didn't even think I had to go to school. Like, I was over there in college, like, and I was studying maths. I was studying a degree in maths, like. Yeah. And I was over there about 6 weeks, and the coach pulled me in, and he was like, Mary, you need to sit down. I went in, and all the staff were there. We're having a meeting with you. And she's like, you're failing all your classes. And I was like, no, I'm not. Like, I'm grand. She's like, you don't even go to half of them. And I was like, yeah, but sure, I'm playing basketball. It's all right. They're like, Mary, you can't play basketball if you don't pass your grades, like. Okay. Didn't even know. I just had this dream. I wanted to be a basketball player. Yeah. I was away at the fairies, like, for sure.
And that's what you were going to do.
Still am, yeah.
And how did you get back on with your grades and everything?
Yeah, when they used to practice. So we used to practice in the morning. And you go to school, and then we used to practice in the evening, so you had 2 days. Okay. And for the 2 days, say, it's actually quite like here, so say, that's the gym, there's glass windows, and I was sitting here looking at them training, and I had to study. So I had study hall. So for 6 weeks, I had to sit and watch them, and I couldn't play basketball. I was barred from the gym. So I got the grades back up, but like that, I had no interest in studying, like I didn't at the time. Yeah. And I know why. It wasn't because I didn't want to study, it was just because I knew I was going to find it tough. And I liked being the best at things. Yeah. And I liked being number one. Like, for me to be number 2 didn't sit well. Yeah. And I knew in the classroom I wasn't the best. So I kind of struggled a little bit with that. But I got up, and in America, pass was 50. You had to pass 50, whereas here it was 40. So I was like, oh, geez, I'm getting 40%. I'm great. And they're like, yeah, it's in America. 50 is a pass. So
Okay.
Look, there was a lot of things I had to learn, but I got there. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. And how did your basketball career play out?
Yeah, it was great. The first year, second year wasn't so great. My whole life changed really in the second year when I look at it.
Okay.
I was over there a couple of weeks early for pre-season, and we were playing 3-on-3. Just a couple of us were over early, and it was an international kind of college. There was kind of an Australian girl in our team. There was maybe 5 or 6 Americans. There was a Scottish girl, so it was great, like loads of different connections. But jumped up, caught a ball, and just look, I twisted my leg completely. I shattered it, and I remember just falling onto the ground like a sack of spuds, and went down to the training room. They came up and they brought me in, had surgery straight away, and came out of surgery, and I ended up having to have a reconstruction done on my leg then. So I had destroyed it, like, and I remember the pain of it, like, and just all that was going on in my head was, oh, I'm gone. My dream is gone. Okay. And I was in excruciating pain, but all I could think about, oh, like, this has disappeared now.
Okay.
Had the 2 surgeries
then. How did that feel at the time? Because it sounds like it's still you could still almost feel that pain and that you were going through physically and mentally.
But in a way, it was a massive trauma for me because I'd never had sport gone for me. That was my coping mechanism for everything. Yeah. And it was just like that. Just like that, it was gone. And it changed my whole life, really, that injury. In
what way?
I was after the 2 surgeries, not the first surgery, after the second surgery, which was the reconstruction I got done, I got a drug called OxyContin, and it's a strong painkiller that some people might know, but look, it's stronger than heroin. It's very dangerous, and I was getting the wrong doses of it. Like, looking back completely, like, I was on 120 milligrams, which was a slow release, and I was on 60 a couple of times a day, so I was on massive amounts of it, like, and just like that, the physical pain went, the emotional pain went, the mental pain went. It all just disappeared. And that numbness that I got that day, I spent the next 10, 11 years of my life chasing that numbness, like, just chasing that feeling of all that pain disappearing. And it just had me very quick, even though I always swore I'd never be an alcoholic or an addict. I always swore I never would. And I just seen it. It's a family disease, like, and I'd seen the devastation it caused. And the minute, like, that drug got me, like, I was gone. Yeah. And that escalated quickly. The progression of that was, I was over there, I was trying to come off them, and
were you trying to do this by yourself?
No, the doctors, I thought it was great. Everything, I was insured over there for everything, so everything I was getting was all free, like, and I remember just couldn't wait to get these tablets, like, every day. It was a time, just the obsession then had turned from basketball to tablets. And that was my first real addiction, was those OxyContin tablets. And remember, doctor tried to come off them, and I went to the liquor store outside the campus. Like, our campus was beautiful, but when you went to step off campus, it was the ghetto, like. Okay. I was pure gangster, like. Yeah. And I'm sure I used to go into the liquor store. I remember going in looking for some sort of a pain medication, and they were like, "What?" I was like, "OxyContin." Like, I remember looking for them, and I've that memory in my head looking for it, and I remember getting them, and I came back playing, and dislocated the shoulder then the following year, and all I could think in my head was, "Geez, lovely, I'm going to get more tablets now." Yeah. You know, I wasn't thinking about, "Geez, I'm gone again." Yeah. The dream was just gone. Like, it was just always wanted to go out, and even partying for me wasn't really big then. It was still, I just wanted to get out of my own head. Yeah. Couldn't cope with what was going on in my head, if that makes sense.
Kind of turn down those negative sounds that were very loud in there.
Yeah, like the noise in my head was silenced when I took some sort of medication or some sort of, whatever it was, escapism. We were speaking about it. Escapism comes in so many forms, like, and for me at the time it was tablets. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So you broke your leg, but you got back on the court again.
18 months later, yeah.
And while while still being addicted to this drug.
Yeah, so I was working back, playing, and geez, I think it was my junior, it would have been my senior year, but I'd redshirted, so it would have been really only my second year playing, but it was my senior year there, it was my 4th year there. Yeah. And I was over there bench pressing, and I was paired up with freshman, and I remember she put 15 kilos on one side extra, and we were bench pressing, I came down and went to press it up, and one side just popped, and my shoulder went. I knew I was gone straight away, so I dislocated my shoulder, I had to get surgery on that then, there was another 8 months gone for that. Okay. So I came back then to Ireland that following summer, and I didn't go back. Didn't go back.
The dream had kind of died at that stage.
Yeah. I just couldn't wait to start partying, and I kind of got a taste for it over there. And came back to Ireland, and sure, that was an excuse just to take off then. I used that as an excuse. Oh, my dream is gone, like this is gone, oh, poor me. But sure, like took no responsibility, blamed everybody else. And that was when I was maybe 20, 21, about 21. And then it was 28, played a tape forward, drinking drugs, just went from drinking a couple of nights a week, then all of a sudden it was 4 or 5 nights a week, and then all of a sudden it's every night a week, and living in a house then with different people, but that's what you did every night. You just had a few cans or a few drinks, and sure then, like, I just got to the stage where I wasn't able to stop, but everyone else was, and I didn't even see what was wrong in that, and then got a taste for cocaine, and sure, that took off a different level altogether. Drinking the fun went down with drinking kind of very early. I was always depressed at the end of the night of drinking. I was always in my own head again. Really, really down, dark thoughts. Cocaine was a different story. That was oh yeah.
And what was it for you? What was alcohol for you?
Alcohol, I suppose, was like, it took me away from me, and like being able to have something in front of me made me fit in. If that makes sense. But I didn't like it. I really didn't like. And I only got I go out even to the pub, like, and I remember, like, I could be in a room full of people having a crack, and I'd be there going, I was depressed, like, really, really down, like. Didn't know what depression was, or didn't know anything about mental health. And I remember then, just when I got those drugs, then that just kind of took off, like, that was different. Then I could party all night and have crack, and I felt like what I thought real happiness was. You know, I thought real happiness was in a bag, and I actually genuinely did. I was so dependent on it, like. Yeah, it was frightening, like, but...
And when, like, was that just to quieten the noise in your head? Was that to kind of ease that, lift that heaviness that was going on in there?
Yeah, like, I couldn't live in reality. When I used to come back to my own thinking, I had to get out of it straight away. I don't know, it terrified me. Being in my own head, like, in reality, absolutely, the fear of God was in me. And it didn't matter what it was, like, just had to have something. Like, even, I remember, like, even going to matches, like, mentally, I started back playing with Kildare then, when I was in my mid-20s, and you'd be going, and I'd be lashing the pre-workout in, and I'd be thinking, geez, if I don't have 5 scoops of this, I won't be able to play well. But it was addictive behaviour in everything I did. It was just, everything was obsession. And, it was just, look, the middle of my 20s, I ended up losing everything. I just lost everything from drinking drugs,
Was that including, like, friends and family and that?
Yeah, like, family-wise, like, I hadn't spoken to my father in a long time. I hadn't spoken to my mother, and no parents. Like, my brother, I was sleeping on his couch, and I ended up kind of isolating from him. My sister I hadn't spoken to in 7 years because we had a falling out when I was too stubborn to be able to pick the phone up and say, look, can we fix this? So a lot of my friends didn't want to go out with me because they knew I was taking drugs either. And the friend group I had, that wasn't really what you did. So I had absolutely manipulated every situation in my life till I could isolate my own and do what I wanted, and I was happy then because no one could say anything to me. And I remember, like, I ended up on a mattress in a house, and I remember, like, I was sleeping in this house, and I was only talking about it today because I have an awful fear of mice today, like, terrified of them. And I have this big hardy one, and I'm terrified of mice, like, but I used to sleep in a mattress in a room, and there'd be mice everywhere, and it didn't bother me. But I remember thinking, on the mattress, I had the dog at the end of the bed, this dog, and he's just a beautiful soul. But I remember having enough cans and enough drugs to get me out of my own thinking that night. And I remember thinking, lads, I have made it. I remember thinking that that's what I thought life was. So.
And looking back now, what do you think about that? Like, how do you feel about that now?
Even, like, if I see a photograph of myself back then, I can just see the ball of pain I was. Just even, I was looking, people showing me pictures from 2016, we won in All Ireland, and I'm just looking at it going, don't show me that, like, I am just a ball of pain, like. And just how I never, ever spoke up or asked for help. Just never said, look, I'm in trouble here, I need a bit of a dig out. I was too proud. Just, I couldn't ask for help because I just thought that was a weakness.
And do you think that's from like you said earlier on, growing up, like, really quickly, being independent, you know, heading off to America? You did everything yourself.
It was all learned behaviour, like from childhood, and it just continued on and it developed, and then that's who it was. It became me. So, yeah, just asking for help was a weakness, and that was it. Like, my thinking was so mental. Like, I remember playing matches, and you'd be there with a bottle of water, and someone said, do you want to drink a water? And I said, no, I'm not thirsty. Because I think the other team will see you drinking a bottle of water and think that you're tiring. Like, in my head, I'd be playing mad games on me. But that was just my thinking. But I came to understand it today.
And how did you perform at the level that you were performing at Mary while that was happening, while that was going on?
Yeah, like I got asked to play in goals one game. We were playing Laois in division. It was Division 1 league game out in Ballykelly, and I remember the manager come up to me and said, look, I was after coming back from an injury, and he said, will you jump in goals? You play basketball, your hands would be pretty good. Like, and we were down a couple of goals at half time, and I remember just going, yeah, I'll jump in. And I remember saving a penalty, and I was like, he was, oh Jesus, and I remember saving another one. And then that's when I kind of got, right, look, you're going to be a bit of a goalkeeper here. And sure, I thought it was great because I could get away with murder as well. Like, I didn't have to have massive aerobic capacity. I was able to, do you know what I mean? And then I'd go to a game, but I'd be concentrating more, saying, listen, they're going to catch you out, and I would really, really concentrate. But I was so driven to stop a ball that no one would find out what was really going on. It was almost like I had nothing to lose, if that makes sense. Looking back now, I always just say, there's a God above watching over me, and that is without a shadow of a doubt, because I don't know how I got through things I got through or how I am here today, and I have a great faith today. Like. Yeah, absolutely. And like during that time, did any of your teammates, any coaches or anybody that you were in contact with on a probably twice or three times a week at that stage, did anybody ever pull you aside and ask you if you were okay, or was there anything like a psychologist, sports psychologist or anything like that in your team? There was no sports psychologist or anything like that, like, but people always ask me that question, and like, you have to understand, like, I was such a ball of anger. Like, I was strong. I had big shoulders. I always lifted weights, and I trained. I'm covered in tattoos. Like, I'm not the most approachable person until you get to know me. I actually am. I'm a big softy. Like, but I had F off written across my forehead. Like, I looked genuine, walk into a room and the head would be down. I just didn't want to associate with anybody. I was really, really just full of anger from everything that I'd never spoken about. So, a couple of teammates had said to me, and I brushed it off. I was sleeping in my car going training. I was going training, I was getting back into my car, I was showering in the dressing room, and I was heading on. And that's the way I lived that year, like. And didn't see anything wrong with it. And I remember the manager that year even asked me, like, what's the story? I hung the phone up on him. Rang me back a couple of weeks later, he said, listen, you need to start talking to me, what's the story? And he actually ended up getting me the house that I'm living in today. It was the house that I was living in, but he got it from me. We did it up. It was an abandoned house, and he knew the guy who owned it, and he did it up, and just small act of kindness from that man. Like, I always say I owe my life to him, because he just got me a mattress, bale of briquettes and a fire log that night, and he said, will you be alright here? I said, yeah. He said, we'll do this up for you. Look, just, I need to know you're safe. Like, that was the kind of first time anyone kind of really seen what was going on. And we played in All-Ireland in 2016, like, and that coach texted me that night before the game and said, Mary, like, please don't have a tipple tonight. I didn't know what the word tipple meant. I didn't know what it was. So I Googled it, and I was like, drinking. I was like, does this lad actually think I'm an alcoholic or something? I was flat out drinking and using every day. My head thinking, does he think I'm an alcoholic? Didn't speak to that man for months. Won in All-Ireland, won everything. I used to go to things and I wouldn't speak to him because he thought that he caught me out. He knew what was going on. But I wasn't ready to accept it at all. But sure, so there was questions, but I just wasn't approachable. I didn't yet.
And so you had that barrier up.
Oh, I had the Great Wall of China up. You couldn't talk to me.
There was nobody knocking it.
No, you couldn't talk to me. No, even when I tried to get help, to take a brick off, that was nearly impossible. Like, it was, the resistance there was massive. And then I remember I listened to your interview with Debbie Shaw, and I was listening to the part where it was the night before the All-Ireland. And I think you had a couple of cans, but you'd also read a book from a Cavan goalkeeper, wasn't it? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And what was it about that book? I remember you kind of, in that interview, you were saying, this is what I have. This is what I have. I know now what I have.
Yeah.
You know,
Like, I actually always thought, I knew there was something going on in my head, right?
Yeah.
But I thought I had a mental illness. I used to go to the doctor and hope he was going to die, me knows me with something, and he was going to nearly tell me I was going to die because I was like, oh, geez, great, that's what's wrong with me.
Yeah.
Never knew, even though it was right in front of me, like. And I actually only did a podcast with that man a few months ago, and I told him this story, and he said, you know what, like, I'm so glad you told me that. It's after that's the reason I wrote the book. And I never read a book, like, ever.
Yeah.
Didn't read books. And I was uptown that day, and I said, look, I wasn't going to take anything hard, and I was going to have just a few cans the night before. And this is my preparation, thinking, you know, this is all right. Like, this is where my head was at the time. Went uptown, got 8 cans, and I remember going in, passing by, I think it was Eason's or something. And I don't even know why it was, but I remember just picking this book up and seeing it was Cavan goalkeeper, Alan O'Mara, The Best Is Yet to Come, the book was called. And I remember just picking it up and went home, drank the 7 cans, fell asleep at 11 o'clock, woke up at 1 o'clock that night, and I remember going, oh, jeez, I've only got 1 can left, and I've no drugs, nothing. So I was starting to come down and become very back to reality. And for some reason, I read that book from front to back, and I got collected that morning then at 8 o'clock or something. And I don't really remember anything else that morning, just I remember being in the second half in that game. But I remember reading that book, and he spoke about depression and mental health and his thinking and how, like, affected he was. And I remember just thinking, oh, this is what's wrong with me. I was like, I have depression. That is all that's wrong with me.
And did you, at that time, did you want something? Did you want a diagnosis like that?
I wanted an answer, yeah.
Yeah.
But I wasn't ready to have an answer either. Like, if you told me there was something, I would have said, no, it's not that.
Yeah.
No, I was in complete denial, like, but I got a bit of hope that day, though. That's what the book gave me. It gave me a bit of hope that, you know what, I related to it, I identified with a good chunk of it, and I knew I'm on the right road here. But it gave me a bit of hope, that book.
Okay.
And yeah, it was only something small, but that was a massive light bulb moment in my life.
Yeah. Even when I was watching that interview, I thought that, because it showed on your face, it was like, you know, that was something that you were kind of almost like you were clinging to.
Yeah.
In that interview, it was a moment that jumped out for me.
Yeah, I remember thinking then, Jays, you know what, when all this is finished, like, I'm going to go on, I'm going to try and get a bit of help for this. Yeah, but sure, then we won, and then I didn't pay for a pint from once in the county, and sure, we ran riot then. Sure, everyone else was on the session, so it was acceptable that I was able to be on the session. Sure, I moved that for another year.
And I suppose, talk to us, Mary, about, you know, when you did decide to go and seek help.
Yeah, I was at a stage where I didn't want to be here anymore.
Yeah.
And that hadn't just been something that just popped up out of the blue. Like, them thoughts have been with me for a long, long time. And there was always a battle waking up in the morning. How am I going to get through the day? I just used to go to bed at night saying, please don't let me wake up in the morning.
Yeah.
I always prayed for some reason. Like, I used to pray really hard, squeeze my hands together. But I just didn't want to be here. And I didn't have the courage to take my own life, like, I didn't. And I spoke about my dog, but I had this dog, Bailey, and Clive knows Bailey. And Bailey's a big golden retriever, and he's 55 kilos, and he's a big ball of love. And he's a pet. And I used to just always look at him and say, geez, who is going to mind that dog? Because I had him since he was 8 weeks. I completely isolated, so it was me and him. It was only ever me and him. And I was like, he wouldn't be able to cope with anybody else. But every day, that dog used to keep me alive, because just the big eyes looking up at you, like, and geez, I love him to bits, like, but he kept me alive, that dog. And one day I woke up and I said, no, I just didn't want to be here. I came to the point where I was at that jumping off point, and I knew what I was going to do. I had everything organised, and I just went to walk the dog one more time on the Curragh, and yeah, my whole life changed that day. Like, yeah, I met a man, and he just changed my thinking completely. Like, and I was out coming back from the walk and met this man, and we did that walk all the time. I always speak about that, because I never met that man today. Never met him again, and he had little Jack Russell, and it was an old man, and he just stopped and he just looked at Bailey, and he was like, God, he's gorgeous. He's just beautiful, isn't he? Like, and I was like, yeah, he is, like. And he just touched me on the shoulder like that. He touched me on this shoulder, and he just said, I hope you have a wonderful day. And just remember that little bit of hope that man gave me. It changed me thinking that day. It was no massive story, but his gentleness and kindness, I said, oh, jeez, I wonder if I stop drinking, will it change me thinking? Still didn't think I had a drug problem.
It's amazing, really, to think that, you know, that brief encounter with somebody changed your life.
Yeah.
And like, even, you know, the message of be kind, that, is going around the world and all of this.
Yeah.
It's really important because you don't know what anybody is going through. You could have looked, absolutely like any other person out walking that day, but that man, he allowed himself to, say those few words to you that changed the whole trajectory of your life.
Oh, it's amazing, and it was something so tiny. It was kindness and gentleness, and that's what I responded to. But when I walked, like I said, I walked with my head down. I used to have this green overcoat, and it was long and it was manky, and I didn't take care of myself, I didn't have any self-care routine, didn't even wear socks, didn't even wear matching shoes or nothing. I had nothing, but I used to wear this hood over, and the head would be down, but the dog would be walked, and he was happy. So it wasn't like I used to stop and talk to people. It was, I mightn't have talked to someone for a week, and he just changed.
But was it having that responsibility for the dog as well?
Yeah, I think, do you know what it was with the dog, right? I think I'd never felt love in my life. I remember getting a drug when I was 15. It was an E-tablet. I remember taking it, and I remember saying, I felt this love. It was this feeling I never felt before. And I remember the day I woke up after getting the dog, I remember looking at him, and he was only a puppy. He was 8 weeks, this little fur ball, like a polar bear. And I remember thinking, I love you. I remember just thinking, I absolutely adore you. You're the cutest little thing I've ever seen in my life. And I couldn't feel anything towards anything, but I felt something towards that dog. And it made me feel human. And it was love. And that dog made me feel and that's why I love him to bits, He made me feel human because I wasn't numb. I was so emotionless, people are showing you babies or going to funerals, and I couldn't show any emotion. I'd be there trying to cry, but nothing would come out. This didn't. I was so blocked off emotionally, Whereas when I seen that little thing, I was like, Jez, I just adore you,
Yeah. It was the one thing that you let down that little wall.
Oh, big time.
Yeah. So let's kind of fast forward, Mary, to, I suppose, where you are now. You're just after winning an All-Ireland.
Yeah, we won the intermediate again in August,
Yeah. And where are you now with your life?
Where am I now? Well, the proudest thing I probably have in my life today is that I turned 3 years clean and sober last Sunday. And I said that with pride because I couldn't get a day. And to say I'm 3 years is just mind blowing. I always ran gym. I always had a gym.
Yeah.
I started in a little shed, and I always did just training people. That's all I knew, and I thought that's what I was going to ever do for the rest of my life, I was doing a talk down the treatment centre a few months ago, and just got a bit of a job opportunity out of it, and now I'm working in the drug unit in an addiction treatment centre in Kildare, working with young men, and it's just amazing, I make a few TikToks. I love doing that. Haven't made one in a week now, and everyone thinks I'm dead. I've got about 20 messages saying, "Where are you?" And I don't know. I have a little bit of peace and contentment in my life that I never had, and it's the greatest gift I've ever been given. I love giving back. I love trying to help people, especially young people, if I can in any way.
Yeah.
I know how tough it was for me growing up, and how to fit in, and life has changed a million miles an hour for teenagers. It frightens me with social media and everything, and just if you can get young people to be themselves and to speak up, I think is what I'm a big advocate for. And it's just, life is simple, and that's the way I love it.
Keep it.
Yeah, I'm due to be going back playing football next week. We're back with the county. Not sure what the story is. I have a surgery coming up that I could be out for the season, but look, I'll deal with that when it comes as well. Life is simple, and it's not here and it's not there, and it's just in the middle, and that's where I want to be.
When you started on this journey, you said that you're 3 years clean and sober now. When you started on that journey, was it a difficult one? How did it come about?
I came into recovery in 2017, and I didn't get clean and sober till 2020.
Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't.
Yeah.
Just couldn't. I started to come down off everything, and I started to live in reality, and I was in reality a couple of days or a couple of hours even, and I had to. So my addiction went from OxyContin. It was kind of straight away. Yeah. Then it was drink. It was harder drugs, cocaine. But then I went back to tablets because I was able to kind of hide them a little bit. So the end of my addiction, it went to full circle. So I was back taking oxys, back taking Xanax, Valium, whatever it was, just to get out of my own thinking. So it was different effects, but I couldn't get a day sober, and I was a fierce liar. I lied about everything, couldn't get honest about anything. I thought honesty was I was going into a room and I was telling people I'm sober, which I was, but I was after taking about 20 Xanax before I went into the room. So I wasn't well.
Yeah.
had to learn what rigorous honesty was.
And were you, at that time, were you lying to yourself as well?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah. Didn't know what honesty was like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Had to learn all that in recovery. You know, older people who've done what I've done and a lot more years in recovery, like, had to teach me how to live, like, you know.
Yeah.
Like, get honest. Like, couldn't tell you that was a glass of water, I tell you it was a glass of Coke. It just didn't matter what it was.
Yeah.
And just said, when you're lying when you put your head in the pillow at night time, if you know you've lived an honest day, you'll have a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
And stuff like that I had to learn, and just how to even take care of yourself. How to, if you say you're going to be somewhere on time, you be there on time. If you give someone your word, you have to commit, you follow up with your commitment. Little things that I never knew how to do. Always have a nice pair of shoes, dress up, show up, no matter how bad you feel. Little things like this, which recovery and people in recovery have taught me, like that. I hadn't a clue how to live. And they say, oh look, you'll get your life back, you'll get your life back. I nothing, like.
Yeah.
Not like nothing, and I'd lost the license twice. I was in awful trouble. I'd pushed all my family away, nobody, all my friends. I just had the dog. It was me, the dog, and drinking drugs, and that was it. And today, like, I got my license back last year.
Well done.
Somehow.
Yeah.
I don't have a car yet, but I'm saving a few quid to get a car. Yeah, I'm getting there.
Very good. Very good.
And my sister I speak to every day on video call. She's in Canada.
Brilliant.
Love her to bits. My brother is fierce close to him. He's two beautiful nephews, beautiful boys. And that's my family, my little circle.
Yeah.
And it's small, but it's low in quantity. I always say that, but it's high in quality. Like
for sure.
Yeah. It's not a bad out life.
No, absolutely not. But I suppose, and I know that we'll wrap it up and we'll get some teas and coffees now in a minute. But how was that journey for you? How was that journey from getting to where you were to where you are right now?
Recovery. Hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And if you ask me to do it again, would I do it? Not hope. But it's without a shadow of a doubt the best decision I've ever made. Like, it was painful. Like, you think you're going forward, but then you're going 10 steps back. You know, you think you're doing all right, but then nah. Like, for the obsession, even for drinking drugs to lift, for me, it took a long time. Like, and people come in kind of into the rooms or into recovery at the same time as me, and I'd seen them doing better than me, and I couldn't understand why I was still back at the start. But sure, I wasn't doing what was suggested either. Wasn't doing the right things. Wasn't being honest. So my recovery has been slow. But there was an old boy I remember I met at a meeting once, and he came up to me and he says, I wish you a really slow recovery. And I remember saying, but you know what? It's been slow, but I have, not that I have it, but for today, I know I'm doing all right.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's all I do. I live in the day.
Yeah.
If you ask me what I'm doing tomorrow, I don't really have a clue. And that drives people mad, but I don't think too far ahead.
Yeah.
I thought about coming here tonight this morning, like, and I genuinely do, like, and I'm so lackadaisical, but look, life will be all right.
I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah, but I know, like, whatever life throws me, whatever adversity I face, or whatever I have to come up against in life, I know I'm going to be okay. And I do. I've that little bit of freedom in me that I know I've great faith that God will look after me, like,
And like, you talk now on your social media about, you know, mindset, and you are a huge, you know, advocate for mental health. So, like, even through what you have experienced, what is your biggest lesson that you've taken away?
Biggest lesson. I think it's probably around my thinking. I remember someone told me that always remember you have a head someday that can lie to you. And I could never distinguish whether it was my head talking to me or my heart. It was always just lies. The devil on the shoulder was always winning. And the biggest thing I think that I've ever learned is when I don't know if this is real or what it's telling me, to talk to somebody else, because they'll give me a dig out. The answers are in here, but sharing with somebody else will get the answers out of you.
Yeah.
But if I live up my own head, it's game over. It's not good. Have to be connecting with people, and I can isolate. Naturally, I isolate. That's what I like to do.
Yeah.
It's because it's what I know, and I've known misery, I've known pain, and to get used to the good stuff for me took a long time.
Yeah.
I remember, something good had happened to me, and I'd knock myself down straight away. Wasn't used to getting the good stuff. No, didn't feel like I deserved anything.
Yeah.
And for me, like, just to be able to realise some days that my head is lying to me, and the days it is to be able to share with someone and to talk to someone, and and just to give back. I love giving back because it was freely given to me, and I have to freely give it back, and I do.
Yeah. And now, like, I suppose you're part of a team. You're part of the Kildare team. Do you talk openly about this in your team sport, or in your team setting, should I say?
No, not really. Actually, to be honest, like, no, like I'm. Look, I'm in recovery. I've had addiction in my life. But that doesn't define who I am in a way, you know. And like I can get consumed in that people will be like, oh, that's not who I am as a person.
Yeah,
it's happened in my past, but I'm not that person anymore. And I don't go around like because I used to be very vulnerable sharing all that stuff at the start.
Yeah.
I'm okay about it now because I'm okay about it.
Yeah. But
at the start I wasn't. I kind of put up a post saying, "Jez, I was 6 months sober," and all of a sudden the whole nation knew that I was clean and sober, and it was everywhere. Yeah. And I didn't have any choice. I was very vulnerable and very exposed. And today I'm okay talking about it, but I don't. If I'm asked to speak about it, I'll speak about it. But I don't go.
You don't go willingly.
Gloat my own story. Yeah. The little TikToks I do, where I know how much something small can change your mindset. Your thinking can change at any stage in the day by something small. I know I could be having a bad day and I'll see something. Aidan can put up a post and say, "Jez, Aidan's out running fucking deadly." Do you know what? It'll encourage me. And it can be something small to change my thinking. So that's why I do that, is because look, you might be having a bad day, maybe a bad month, maybe a couple of bad months, but it's not a bad life. And it's just your thinking can change around that very, very, very simply.
Brilliant. And last question: what advice would you have for anybody that might be, I suppose, experiencing anything that you have gone through, whether it's the noises in your head or, you know, whether it's addiction? What advice would you give to anybody that may be going through anything that you've been through?
Yeah, I think like we all have resistance in us.
Yeah. And
I think it's all from fear. And the thing is, fear isn't real. It's something we create in our heads and our thoughts. And thoughts aren't facts. It's to face your fear. It's the biggest thing I've probably ever learned. When I go into the uncomfortable, that's where the growth is. You know, when you go into the pain, that's where the growth is. Whatever aspect of your life it is, but it's to face your fear. And I remember seeing a movie when I was a kid, and it was face your fear and your fear will disappear. And it was always something that rang in my head. But when you step out into the uncomfortable, you have to step into it, because if you don't, you're never going to go forwards. You're either going forwards or backwards in this life. And I'm a firm believer of that. Like, and to face fear and to overcome it is that's where the growth is.
Brilliant.
Yeah, whether it's a fear of resistance to talking, like whatever it is, just is to step out into that fear.
And I think there is a big fear around making that first step of reaching out and talking to people. So even if there's anybody listening or watching this back at another time, anybody here, how would you say what would you say about overcoming that fear to get to where you are today?
Action.
Yeah.
Action is the word. Like, you have to put the action in. If you don't put the action in, it's never going to change. And you can think all day about it. I used to be a great woman for making plans and thinking about things.
Yeah.
Just go and do it. Just go and act. Action is the key. Yeah.
Okay. Mary, thank you so much for your time. It was brilliant.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll just have a quick cup of tea or coffee, and then we'll be back in about 5 minutes or so. I hope you all got a tea or a coffee or whatever you wanted, and a couple of biscuits. So next up we have Aidan Loughnane. Aidan came all the way from Tipperary, and he's going to start off by maybe telling us a little bit about himself.
Yeah, so I'm Aidan Loughnane. I'm from Thurles in Tipperary. I suppose I managed to get here because as of late I got a lot of exposure on social media through Instagram and TikTok. I suppose I just started to share what I called my truth, and it got some good attention and some bad attention. I always found it as something that I thought people mightn't want to hear, but they needed to hear. And over the last couple of months, I accumulated 135,000 followers, and to me, I don't call it followers, I call it more of a community, because with these people, I get a lot of messages every day and I reply to every message. I don't leave one message unanswered, whether it's something small as well done or to a very in-depth conversation where we navigate some fairly heavy topics. But apart from that, I'm a barber by trade. I'm still working a few days a week. Apart from when I have events like this, I take the day off. But apart from, I'm a fairly normal lad who's just telling the truth and riding the wave that's come his way in the last couple of months.
Yeah, amazing. And I suppose, like, we know that you started your Instagram account like 2 years ago, and you're up to, I think, what did you say?
135,000
followers.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Mental.
Amazing.
I think when it first
in 2 years.
In 6 months.
In 6 months,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I think when it first started happening, I got a panic attack every day for about 3 weeks. The messages that would come in, it was overwhelming. Like, it really was. No, it was crazy. That's why I always say I'm so happy that happened now when I'm 30 and my morals are in line and my values. And I know what I want from my life and for my life, because if it happened to you when you're 22, I could definitely see how it could lead you down to a very bad kind of road in your life. Like, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go back to the start.
Okay.
Tell us about a young Aidan, growing up. Who was he? What was he? How was he?
Well, he definitely didn't look like he does now. When I was 14 years old. This is one of my fondest memories. Was I was 14 years old. I was 16 stone. I was a big boy. I wasn't tall. My whole life I suppose I was very insecure about my weight. Suffered deeply with separation anxiety, and growing up was tough. It was hard for me when I was young. I look back at it now, and it kind of, my anxiety as a child, like I didn't know I had it back then, but now it's fairly prevalent in my life. It got to the stage where I suppose the weight was a big thing. I would comfort eat a lot. Turned to OCD. It was quite strange. I'll never forget it. I was a child. I had to knock on the wall 3 times before I could go to sleep. Sometimes I would convince myself I didn't do it 3 times. I've often spent 2 or 3 hours doing this in my bedroom, to the point where my brother was like, Aidan, and he was even nice, but he was like, Aidan, please stop knocking on the wall. He's like, please. And I would just keep doing it. All these things. I'd have to say goodnight to my parents. Maybe it was like, I can't remember off the top of me, 5 or 6 times each. And if I didn't get it right, I could be doing that for a prolonged period of time as well. So yeah, my childhood was fairly mental, all right. And I suppose when I was about 15, 16, I became conscious of the fact that I was overweight. And then I suppose it started as a very healthy kind of progression. At the start, I got a skipping rope and just started skipping in the kitchen.
Okay.
And it was good. I would do a little bit, couldn't do it, do more. And eventually I did lose weight, but then this like obsession, this deep-rooted obsession. And again, looking back at it now, I understand why it's all about control. You know, when you have weight is one of these things you can control. So that developed deeply into a bad eating disorder. I was, I'd say maybe 16 at the time, roughly the same height I am now. I had a growth spur, but I was 9 stone something maybe. I was diagnosed anorexic and I was bulimic. So at the time I was surviving on, we'll say, fags, water, black coffee. If I ate something, it was picked with, plucked off the table, and I would eat it. And the guilt I would feel for eating it, I would be in the toilet, putting down the fingers, trying to get it up. I'm not saying that went on for a long period of time. Thankfully, it didn't. But it got to the stage where I remember I would pinch the skin on my arm like this. And I was, I need to lose that. When I lose that, I'll be happy. My whole life was built around this, then I'll be happy. Ever since I was a child. And I suppose, just going back a small bit to our childhood, is like, I spoke to you about this, was I always had this, it was almost a weird understanding of debt. And I don't know where it came from, because at this stage of my life, nobody had actually passed along to me. No friends, grandparents, anything. It was just there. It was so prevalent. I understood the concept of death and what it felt like, what I thought it was going to feel like. And you know, every now and again you hear these stories of like the world is going to end on the 25th of whatever, 2000. I remember I would hear it on the road, because I'm from a council estate as well, so we always spend time on the road with the boys and having the crack, but I would hang around with the older lads. And I remember when somebody would tell me this date, it would ring in my head for months. Now, I'm not talking today. I would obsess about this day in my head for months. And I was only maybe 9 or 10. I remember one time my mother was doing the ironing, and I'll never forget it, in the kitchen. I sat there and I stared at the clock, and I waited and I waited and I waited. And as soon as the clock hit the date and the time, it didn't end I was free until my next one. So my life has been, as a child, I was just destroyed by it, like, and it was weird. It was weird. And then I suppose I could keep going on now until 17. I was at a friend's birthday party, 18th. I had just arrived into the pub, wasn't drinking yet, and I suffered my first panic attack. Little did I know that I'm sorry, this always, that would destroy my life for 10 years. That one night I went in, and I got a message off somebody, a friend lately, and he had his first one as well. And he texted me the very same fears he had that night that stuck with him. Now, it only happened last weekend, was the same thing that happened to me. I sat in that pub, and I felt like I was fine. And this overwhelming sensation, I felt like someone had spiked my drink. This concept of being spiked. It felt to me like that had happened, but I hadn't even had a drink. So I ran out of the pub, I ran across to a shop, got a bottle of water. And everything, my mind was racing. I felt like I was going to collapse, I was going to fall down. My heart was racing, I couldn't breathe. I ran home, went up the stairs. My mother and father were like, "You're home early already." Upstairs, trying to calm myself, sitting on the edge of my bed. I was terrified. But the only person I ever found that could comfort me in my life was my mother. And I have such a brilliant relationship with her, I always have. So I called her up. And it was at that moment, like, it was one of the hardest things to do. And I explained to her what was going on. She knew what they were, so she tried to explain it to me. But words couldn't help me at that time. My mind was everywhere. But for a 17-year-old lad who's from a council estate, who hangs around with the boys, who's the big man, you know, they're the kind of lads that I would pass on the road and think like, jeez, that was me, like the matching tracksuit, the white socks. To ask my mum, can you sit on the end of my bed until I fall asleep? Like, I look back at that and think what that took out of me to say that was massive. And I think the comfort she gave me then, that she still gives me now, but up until that, like, I mean, I really pushed on that answer, but from my childhood, from young to 17, was just insane.
And at that time, Aidan, what did you know? What triggered that panic attack? Like, was it going into the crowd? Like, what was going on for you at that time?
No, it was strange because I was always I was very extroverted. Like, I was never one to shy away from crowds. I was always I suppose, like my brother said, you know, I was always the Jim Carrey character, which are often the ones that are destroyed inside the most. You know, I was always making people laugh. I was always trying to be the funny man. I would make jokes of my insecurities before anybody else could, you know.
Yeah.
But there was nothing extraordinary about that. I suppose, look, like I said, I can look back on it all now and I can understand because I've done my research on it. I know what these triggers were. But it was definitely just a build-up of everything. It was all these years, all these obsessions, all these deep-rooted insecurities, and it just showed itself in a physical form for the first time.
Yeah. Sometimes I like to use the analogy of a volcano when, you know, I might be working with a client and they might feel like, oh, they have done something, they have, you know, could be lashed out or, you know, but expressed all these pent-up emotions in one go. It's like that volcano just erupts, and they don't know how to channel that in a healthy kind of a way, I suppose. So we always push down our feelings. We always kind of keep trying to bury them. We don't want to deal with them, so we just keep burying them, and then they have to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And at some point or another, they're going to come up, and it's about kind of like, how do you deal with them when they do come up? So it's just learning the skills to deal with them when they do show. But at that time, your mother was there, and she was kind of like the saving grace.
Yeah, she was the rock.
Yeah, and like you said, that it felt really hard for you as a 17-year-old boy who was
absolutely.
After coming home from the pub, you know, asking your mom, sit with me until I fall asleep. You know,
I was mortified, but like there was no other way. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
it was the fear. Like,
And
it was the fear.
did she give you that comfort that you needed at that time?
Absolutely. Even shortly after, I was like the king of Google, you know. I would Google all my symptoms.
Yeah.
It wasn't too long before I knew what was wrong with me. She brought me to see, it was a counsellor. It was kind of like a brief visit.
Yeah.
She brought me to him and he said, look, he asked, could I speak to him alone? She said, yeah, because I was 17. And we spoke, and he called her in and said, look, Margaret, he knows what's wrong with him. Like, I self-diagnosed myself in that room, so I knew what it was. And then it got to the stage where he was like, look, we went down to the GP put a box on the table, said, take them. I brought him home and threw him in the bin. I refused to give in to that, and I've spoke to you about this before this. I'm not anti-medication for mental health. I believe that for some people at some periods, they can get you over that hump. But for me, at 17 years old, I had seen what tablets had done to people on my road, and I wasn't going to be what we called a tablet head. I just refused. So I suppose even in my weakest time in my life, I always had something there, some bit of a backbone. Like, I wouldn't give in, you know, and like, not a lot, but there was occasional underage drinking, you know, from that age. But like we addressed, I had stopped drinking then from 17 up until I was 21. And normally, a lot of people, when they experience these things, they'll turn to drinking drugs as the cope. But for me, it was the opposite. I was so afraid of losing control of a situation or myself. So my thing was always about control. So I was afraid to drink or afraid to take drugs because I wanted to always be on that, like, on control of myself.
And then, so then when you did drink, when you did drink alcohol, how was that for you?
So it was always this thing where all my mates, like, I still went out a lot.
Yeah.
Like, I pushed through it in private, you know, like my mother and father would say, like, I would get all dressed up and then it would come a thing where I either make an excuse, I'm not going out if something happened, or within 45 minutes I was back home. You know, there was always some form of an excuse. And it was literally just one random night, we were in my house, the boys were having pre-drinks in my house, and I walked over to the fridge and I cracked a can and I just drank it. And it was like Ireland had won the World Cup. The house erupted, the lads went nuts, they couldn't believe it, like, he's back on the drink, you know.
Yeah.
But it was grand, and I went out and I had a great night. But then the morning after was anxiety on steroids, like. Yeah. And that was a whole different problem then.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, when did the running start, or, you know, when did you get started with that?
Jesus, so I suppose.
Or have we skipped it ahead a little bit?
It's a lot. Yeah, so running. I started running 2 years ago. Yeah. About 2 years ago. Wanted to trim up for the summer. Was 125 kg. I'm 88 kg now, so that's a general reflection of the size difference. Wanted to trim up, put on my shoes, played this idea of like a Rocky montage in my head of how I'm going to look. And it didn't look like that at all. I got about, no, in fairness, in my defence, 3 kilometres for the first time isn't bad. But I was in ribbons.
Yeah, right.
But like I said, we did skip quite a bit there.
Yeah.
So by this stage of my life, I was so bad, I turned around and said, you know what, I'm going to get really good at this thing. Yeah. I was so bad, I wanted to get good. So kept showing up, kept staying consistent, kept ticking the boxes, and I suppose that was it. We're here now, like. Yeah, absolutely. Do you know, there is no real magic story, but just that was it. One day I was fat and I just said, I'm going to make a change. Okay. And then, so let's go back again. A lot.
Let's go back and just visit a time where, I suppose, where you hit your rock bottom. You know, when was that and how was that for you?
Okay. So, my panic attacks had gotten so bad to the point that I wanted to go to college. I finished school, 6th year, done my art portfolio, went to go to Limerick School of Art and Design, and the panic attacks were so bad that I was debilitated. I couldn't do anything. My life was shit. It was miserable. It was a very poor existence for any young man to have to live. I tried to go to college and I couldn't. Every day was a new battle. There was always something. Everything triggered me. There was no single thing. So I said, I'll defer it. I might go back, we'll see. 2 years later, I was 19. I was working in Dunn's in Thurles. And it had been a colossal battle for 2 years.
How was college for you?
I wanted it to be good. Mm-hmm. I really did. I look back at that and I just think like I really wanted that to be good. Mm. I just couldn't do it. Like I didn't have it in me. Like I didn't have the strength, and I tried for weeks on end. First I tried living down there, and the idea of being away from my home was too much. And then I started getting the train up and down. That was too much, to the point where my mother would drive me up and down from Thurles to Limerick in the morning. And I just couldn't do it. I tried and I couldn't. So I had to stop. And all this it ate me up inside, because I felt like I wasn't strong, you know. I felt like I wasn't man enough to do this. At 19, that's it. You want to be the man, you know, you're a big man. And it got to the point where, like I said, I was in Dunn's stores one day and it just fucking broke me. I just had enough. And I was holding back the tears, and I walked up to my
you were working at the time, weren't you?
I was working in Dunn's, and I walked up to my manager at the time and said, look, I need to go home, I feel sick. And bit of a little debate back and forth. I said, oh, I'm sick. So I left. I was going home to kill myself. It had gotten so bad that I just had enough of my life. And I always said this, I never wanted to die. I just couldn't continue to live like this anymore. Every time I thought I had a bit of fight, I just got kicked down every time. So I left Dunn's. I walked down by the back of the river near my house. This day, it's like it's burnt into the back of my eyelid. It's like every time I think about it, I relive it. I feel it. It's there. I walked up the back of the river and I just cried my eyes out, because I knew every step I took, I was getting closer to taking my own life. I said, this is it. I knew both my parents weren't going to be at home. There was no one to stop me. I had a plan in my head. I knew what was going to happen. If I got home, I said, it's game over. Just passing the cathedral in my town. Now, I had been going to mass, like normal communion, confirmation, the normal Irish upbringing. It wasn't any divine intervention. I just didn't want to go home, because I knew once I get in that door, it's game over. So I went into the church, and I walked up through the aisle. The church was empty. It was the middle of the day. I kneeled down under a massive cross of Jesus, and I just closed my eyes and I just cried, and I didn't even pray. I just begged. I said, look, I don't want you to even take this away. I said, just help me get through it. And I sat there and I said, look, if you give me a sign, give me something just to hold on to. And when I said that, and like I said, it was, I heard this kind of a sound, right? So I heard a door. And after that then, it was just this little and I could hear this woman walking towards me. And at the time, like I said, 19-year-old big man, put my head down. I was trying to hide the tears, shoulders shrugging, you know, bouncing away. And she came over to me and she put her hand on my shoulder and she slid this little book in under me. There was like a little kind of a counter here. And the book said, "Can you help me?" And it was just a picture of Jesus on the front. And then I heard her walk away. And I didn't even want to look. I looked up and she had gone. And I ran home. I gave that book to my mother. I didn't tell her the extent of what I was going to do, but I had explained how deeply troubled I had gotten. The pages of that book have come away from the binding on the back. My mother reads it every morning because she knows the significance of what that book means. If that woman had not come up to me that day, I would have gone home and taken my life. And this has nothing to do with religion. The reason I tell that story and is because I believe that you have to look for a sign, and if the sign doesn't show it to you, then it will one day. Something will happen in your life that can and will bring you back. I wasn't down and out. I was gone. I was like, there was no coming back for me. And just like that, a book in front of me stopped me from taking my own life. That's probably the changing story of my life. That was my lowest point for what I thought was my lowest point. It didn't get exactly easier after that. It was still a constant battle. It's not like God saved me. That's definitely not how it worked. So I continued to do my few bits, got a little bit of strength. That day gave me a nice bit of strength, but the anxiety was still there. Managed now to get myself to college. Finally. Got to strength, could step outside of Thurles, was down in Cork studying graphic design and CIT. It was good. I enjoyed the course up until I was just about to go into my third year, and my brother died. So I was 21. And my brother was 25, and he died. And that was brutal, just fucking brutal. Ruined me for years, but I left college. I didn't enjoy it. I just said, fuck this. I said, my brother's dead. It was this whole, look what life has done to me again. But then the strangest thing happened. Nothing. There was no emotion. I cried when he died. I remember being on the ground, and I punched the ground to the point where my hands couldn't close anymore. But after that, the emotion was gone. There was not left in me. I'd been just drained of this life. I had started going out drinking, just obsessed with validation. I became like a womanizer. It was a bad time in my life. And something after a short period of time, about 2 years after he passed, it just clicked in me. All this repressed emotion from his death came out one day. I was driving home, parked up the car on the side of the M8 and laid into the steering wheel for about 5 minutes. Again, destroying my hands. I had such anger towards the world and what life had done to me. But it was after that day, and anyone that truly understands loss, I'm not talking about the loss of a 70 or 80-year-old family member. I'm talking about being a 21-year-old and lowering your brother into the ground. That was the best and worst day of my life. And anytime I say that, people say, what do you mean the best? Because it made me who I am. Everything that came from that day shaped me. I would turn around, and anything that I ever feared, anything, leaving the country, going here, going there, meeting these people, I lived my life in the acceptance that I can die. And it's such a weird thing. And it brought me back to my childhood. I spoke to Marie about this when we had the call earlier in the week. I've always understood that concept of death, but I felt like I ran away from it my whole life. And maybe that's why I was so troubled my whole childhood. But now I could sit with it. I can now find the beauty in death. I can find the beauty in the hardest things in life. I believe that voluntary suffering, to put yourself through willing suffering, running extended distances, training all these nights, that suffering is what will shape you. You can take the best things from the worst things in your life, because life's hardest times and the worst imaginable things are the single factor that will teach you the greatest lessons in life. You will learn nothing from good times. Never. You will take them for granted. You will never appreciate them. In my suffering, I became the man I am today. I wouldn't change it for the fucking world, because I know that even though he isn't here, everything I do now is for the two people in my life. Was when I lost my brother, and when my childhood best friend took his life 2 years ago. Look, this sounds like a right little fucking pity party, but what I'm trying to show is that life has been shocking. It's been shocking for me since I was a child to now, but it doesn't mean it's not a beautiful place. See, what happened to me was I had progressively fought and given my heart to this thing and promised my brother, because you see, I had to sit in the room across from my mother and watch my mother put her face in her hands that she had lost a child. Now, how could I take my own life and put her through that again? You know, these are the things you learn from situations. My parents broke the day my brother died. How can I do that to them again? So I suppose that got me through a large part of my life. But the single reason behind what I do now, this, was one of my best friends, Gary Kirby. 2 years ago, July 12th, he took his own life. Me and Gary, from here up, from children all the way up, were side by side. I knew he struggled. He knew I struggled. Brothers in arms. We were absolute weirdos as kids. We never fitted in. We painted our nails black. We had long hair. We listened to Marilyn Manson. We were some right looking dudes. But we took it together, you know. And 2 years ago, Gary came up to me on the Friday and the Saturday, and we spoke. I was in work. He walked past like he does every day. He threw up the hand, but this day he seemed a bit off. So I walked out to the door. I called him over. We had a chat outside. I could tell something was wrong. Put my arms around him. Said, look, man, we've always done this. This is what we do. We keep pushing. The Saturday, Gary walked past again. I could see, you know, it's so bittersweet because I couldn't see it then, but I can see it clear as day now. And it fucking breaks my heart. And I called him over. I said, look, man, I told the boys in work, I said, look, I'll be back there in 10 minutes. I need to go and have a chat. Went over, sat down with Gary, had a little chat. And the next morning, I got a text saying Gary took his own life last night. Jesus.
I remember when I was talking to you, Aidan, and it's one of the I suppose the statements that stands out for me most from our conversation together. But you looked back at when you looked back at both of the deaths that you have, like your brother's death and your best friend's death, and you looked back and you said, just before my brother died, I started going out and having a drink. And I was kind of going, and how did that help? And you were like, but I was able to have a couple of drinks with my brother before he passed. And you said the same thing about your running. So you had just started running before your friend died.
Correct.
And it had, in some way, that and I suppose the reason that I asked you to be here tonight was because of, you know, how exercise has impacted your mental health.
Yeah, well, you see, I had started running, and that's what led to this. When I had spoken to Gary, we had talked about that.
Yeah.
I said, look, I'm running now 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
I've never felt like this before in my life. I said, my head is finally clear. Because when I started running, like everyone else, you know, you have the headphones in, you're blocking out the world. But my headphones died one day, and that's why now I've never worn them again. Because for the first time in my life, now when I ran, I could just break down all these thoughts. I had so much time to sit with myself, and it just made me feel unbelievable. And I tried to give him that help. But I think when it comes to running, and this is a mad thing, and I always say it, like, it literally saved my life.
Yeah.
And it's such a strange thing because it's the relief in the suffering. Like, I love it. And this sounds so weird when I say it out loud, but I love the suffering because I feel alive. Like, when I suffer, I feel alive, and it gives me that reward system that I suppose I never had in my life. And it's when you train for something and you achieve it. I remember my first marathon. I ran Cork Marathon, and I remember crossing the finish line, and I burst into tears. I didn't care, bawl crying, because for the first time in my life, I was proud of myself. I didn't need anybody to tell me I was good enough, or I didn't need any form of validation. I worked for this. I got it.
You knew that you were.
That was it. And then I suppose the time I spent running, it allowed me to go deep into my thoughts. And then I started this whole thing with Instagram, and I started, as I say, like dipping my toe into it. I would post these very
honest.
Well, before that, I would say, oh, mental health is this, and make sure you talk to somebody, and it's going to be okay. And 7 months ago, I was running, and I thought to myself, man, I don't even believe what you're saying. Like, I don't even believe your words, like, because the truth is, it's not going to be okay. And people say, no, it might not be okay, but you can be. You see, to say every situation is going to be okay is a lie. Like, it's not. But the strength you gather in life can make you face anything, like any adversities you can face. But you need to find something to give you that strength. So one day I was running. Phone came out of the pocket, hit record. The first line was something like, you need to wake up and realize that you're not special, that you're not exempt from the shit show, that you are not exempt from suffering, that life is going to get you. But understand, it's a beautiful life. If you don't have the bad, you'll never appreciate the good. And that's what my bad times have taught me, and what running exposed to me. It opened my eyes to my life and what I thought was this insufferable life. But it's amazing. Like, my life is great. From everything I do and been through, like, I'm now sponsored by Elvery's, like, that's mental, like. I'm just a lad that records himself talking, and you're getting sponsored by Elvery's, Revive Active, all these brands that want to work with you. Because I always saw myself as someone that would never get these opportunities because I'm not a marketable person. Speaking the truth isn't what a lot of brands want to hear. They don't want to work with it. You're not a very marketable person. But the following displayed differently. People now were ready, and I done this stuff at the start to help younger people, but now my demographic is 25 to 45-year-olds, because these are people who have been told that you'll be okay their whole lives, and now they're looking for something else. They're ready to hear what I used to call my truth, but now they call it their truth. They're ready to hear something that you have to look at the hard times. My messages are endless, and I tell the people the same thing. I say, what do you think can benefit your life? They always ask me, Aidan, help me, what can I do? I say, what do you think? 9 times out of 10, they're going to give me the answer. Stop waiting to be told what to do. Like you said, take action. You know what you need to do. The problem is you won't do it because it's hard to do it. It's not what you want to hear. It's what you need to hear.
And sometimes when you look back at that, even when you look back and you think that that was such a really difficult step, it was probably the best step of your life. Like, even messaging you could have been so difficult for somebody.
Absolutely.
But what you may have said to them, or what you may have asked them to realize about themselves, and about the fact that they have their own, you don't have the answers for them, they have their own answers. That might have, worked for them. That might have helped them in getting to where they wanted to go.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times for me, and it's like we said, you don't know until you know it. You don't see it until you've already seen it. A lot of times it's in your face. It's very obvious what you need to do. It's just hard. And until you know, you don't know. I didn't know what I had to do. And I'm not exempt, or my problems aren't all of a suddenly relinquished and they're gone. I still have bad days. I still get panic attacks. They don't go away. I just know what to do. If I have a bad week, I know the steps I need to take to get it right. I've done it before. The script doesn't change. You just repeat, and eventually you'll come out of that hole. That's why I think when I first heard Jordan Peterson, that was a massive turning point in my life. I think he finally made me understand this concept of, if you chase happiness, you will never be happy. Because happiness is not a fixed state. Happiness doesn't really exist. I think it's about purpose. It's about finding something that gives you purpose in life. Another thing I say to people that reach out to me, I say, when you find something in life that you're so passionate about, that pulls you, I do this now. I couldn't, in my wildest dreams, let alone speak in front of people, say it to anybody. But the day Gary took his own life, I swore to him and to myself, I'm going to help somebody. I don't care if it's one person. If someone texts me and said, Aidan, I'm in Dublin, can you come up and talk to me tomorrow? I will go and talk to that person. Because you don't realise the effect you have on a single person. And it is mental. Hadn't that woman given me a book, I wouldn't be here. It's all these things. It all compounds.
And it's the same as Mary said earlier on about
the man and the dog.
You don't know, you see. The dog. It's like sometimes it's the smallest gesture, but that might be all you need to make you see the light, to make you see that there is a bit of light, and that might be the sign that you're waiting to see.
There's an ongoing comment in my on my videos. I said in a video once, one more day. It's all I say. I've always told myself, one more day. If you wake up and it's not good, it's one more day. You wake up, it's not good, one more day. And it's the same in a race. When you're running, one more step. Break it down. You can't do 10, do 5. You can't do 5, do 1, and then just do one more step. And just keep moving forward. That's all it is.
Yeah.
I think life and long distance running are just the perfect analogy together. They just work perfectly. And I've been shaped by it. And I wouldn't change it for the world. It's made me who I am.
Yeah, absolutely. And what is the, I suppose, when you look at that as an analogy, what is it?
Suffering. No, it's like.
But getting to the end line.
It's like that. It's when you suffer and you face those hard times and the adversity in your life, and it doesn't have to be as grand as a sibling passing or a friend. It's a partner breaking up with you. It's losing your job. It's having financial troubles. It's reversing your car into a wall. It's everything. Something that's so minuscule to you could be detrimental to somebody else, because you don't know what. But there's not a single person in this building right now that isn't going through something. Not a single person. It might not be to the same extent, but I remember when my brother died, someone texted me and they said, "Sorry for your loss. I know what you're going through. My grandmother died." And being the naive young lad I was at the time, I said, who is this fella to compare his grandmother to my brother? But you see, my fiance's grandfather is the equivalent of her dad. Who am I to judge our relationship between people? You don't know. That's why when I make my videos, I don't speak to a person. It's just my truth. I tell my story,
Yeah, absolutely. So, what advice would you give to anybody that might be starting out on their running journey? And would you advise them first of all to start out on the running journey?
I would, yeah. Look, to be honest with you, it's great. It's great, and I suppose what I got off of running the most is I've built a little community within my own town, my own friends, other people around. Just getting people out running. It gets people talking. After the marathon now, I'm going setting up a proper run club in Thurles. They have like
Brilliant.
an athletics club, but
Yeah.
I want to set up a club where for people to come out in the dark months, it's hard to get out as a group. We get numbers out, but the thing is, I want to break this kind of stigma of like you have to look or be this certain way to be a runner. Because when I started running, I didn't look like a runner. I looked like a second row. Like I was huge. Like I was built. Like I'm not saying I was fat. Like I was into powerlifting. Like I was strong, but I was huge.
Yeah.
Plodded along the roads there. Like, but I want to build a community of, be it lads who are athletes, mammies, kids, anyone. Just come out, have a bit of crack. And I think with running, it's the most worthwhile thing ever. And I know people do field sports, they find it incredibly hard to get into it because it is a byproduct of something they want to do. So a lot of them don't really like running. But you have to accept, like everything, it might not be for everyone.
Yeah.
So I reckon everyone should give it a try. Accept that it's going to suck. But when it gets a bit easier, you might enjoy it. But it's honestly, it's not for everyone. And
Yeah.
I know that myself.
I remember there was a friend of mine who she didn't want to even walk 1 kilometre, and she started out, and we started off with 0.5 kilometres that she would walk, and then we'd go 0.5 kilometres that she'd run. So she did it first day. No, she didn't even want to. She didn't even want to do it. Then during the week, she gradually built up this. Okay, I got to 0.5. Now the next week we'll go to 1 kilometre. She got to 1 kilometre. She ended up a couple of weeks later winning the sprints at her football training. And this girl she wasn't even willing to allow herself to have that feeling of she could do it. Sometimes people like that, they just need the push to be part of something, and because it's hard for people to get involved in things that they don't know about, and even earlier on when I was saying about the Ladies Lifestyle Academy, I was saying that there was ladies standing outside the gym and sitting outside the gym in their cars for hours, and they wouldn't go into the gym. They couldn't bring themselves to walk up the stairs of the gym, and as soon as they got in the door, those ladies have been there since. And that was 3 years ago. Sometimes it's really, really hard. So just even setting up the club and giving people that, I suppose, that helping hand to experience those feelings of what running gives you, like those endorphins that I spoke about earlier on.
Like a drug.
It
really is.
Yeah, absolutely, it is. So that's what's next for you, the running club.
Yeah, Dublin Marathon on Sunday.
Right.
Looking forward to that.
Best of luck with that.
Yeah, trying to pull in a 3:10 in that, so 4:30 per kilometre. Going to be dirty enough, but look, the work is done. I've lost another 6 kg. I don't always look this strung out, don't worry. I am incredibly skinny right now, but that's the sacrifices. It's like, look, there's sacrifice in everything you do, and I know on the day I'll finish. And I think with the marathon, even if you miss your time, it's the achievement, because it's not, the race is one thing, but it's every day.
It's the
for
journey.
16 to 20 weeks, you banged that drum, you went down in the dark mornings, got out of the bed when herself was in the bed and it was warm, you rolled out, put on your shoes, piss and rain, and on the day you reap the rewards and you have a few pints with the boys and you celebrate, and hopefully keep growing the Instagram. That's it, like.
And what is the motivating factor behind running for you?
It saved my life. I said, like, I think running, to me, I explain to somebody, it's like a relationship, You love it so much, you do it on the days you don't want to do it. You're with somebody for X amount of years. You'll always love them. You'll have arguments. You do it on the days you don't want to do it. Like,
that's brilliant.
running has given me my life, so I will give my life back to running, and that's it. Like, I wouldn't be here without it. And it baffles people because something so stupid as putting on a pair of shoes, it literally saved my life. So that's it. I give everything. The days it's wet and it's cold. That's why when you said to start, does everyone? I love it. Every day when I'm sore, I'm tired, it's raining, I love it because it gave me this. I wouldn't be here. All these opportunities in my life, I wouldn't have if I didn't put on them shoes and run.
Yeah.
That's why I tell everyone, look everywhere. When you're looking for that passion in life, look everywhere. Leave no stone unturned.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be hiding. It's going to be in the depths of the ocean under the smallest rock.
Yeah.
It's not going to be in your face. But when you find it, that's my motivation. It's just, and I remember like, someone said to me like, what do you love most in the world? And like, my missus just looked at me and I was like, well, obviously you, but it's family and running, and that's it. It's family first, running second. And I had a coach before, and he said, if you want to take running serious, look, I'll never be the best runner, but I'll be the best I can be. I pour my heart into it. Like,
that's all you can
he
do.
said, family first, running second. No other order. There's nothing come before running. Nothing. If you want to push, nothing. If you're sore, it doesn't matter, you run. The only time you stop is when you're injured. And for a runner to admit that is rare. My physio will say that a runner's pain threshold, she says, don't train over a 3. We call a 6, a 2. You know, you're always in pain. There's always something. There's always a niggle, a strain. You're never fully rested because you're running 100 kilometers a week. You know, it's high mileage.
Yeah.
It's suffering, but it's the reward you get from that pain, and that's why the analogy for life is running.
Brilliant. Well, best of luck on Sunday,
I'm going to need
Aidan. And like, even, you know, when you get to that point, when you get to that finish line on Sunday, and when you think back to all those evenings, all those mornings that you've got out there training, it'll all be worth it, I'm sure.
Yeah, look, it's like I say, I am definitely very, like, I know there'll be tears. Will be tears. Every marathon I do, there's tears. I'm not a sensitive person. I'll take anything on the chin. I think, though, being so in tune with your emotion is just like, it's a blessing and a curse, you know. Like, I'm so in tune with it that when something comes, it comes hard. And I know at the end of every marathon, that overwhelming feeling of pride is just, there's not like, that's why, thank God, I never went down the line of drugs, because I reckon I'd be really good at it. Do you know? Because when I run and I get that feeling, I just love it. I love it. Yeah. Thank you very much, Aidan. And I'm conscious of everybody's time. So I'm just going to ask, is there any questions that anybody has? Anybody with questions? I think we're good.
Are we good? Okay. Well, I don't want to keep you.
Late.
Yeah,
it's late.
I don't want to keep you.
9:10. Sorry. When I start, I don't stop.
I didn't want to stop you either, but I am conscious of the fact that you have long drives ahead of you.
3 hours.
And I am very grateful for you both for travelling from Kildare and Tipperary. I do appreciate that.
Thank you.
And I hope that you all took something from our 2 special guests tonight. And as I said, the aim of those Maximise sports seminars is to inspire, educate and empower people in sport, people that are involved in any type of sport, people that are sports professionals, parents of people in sport or whoever, but just realising that, you know, the road isn't always easy, but it's worth it. It's worth it in the end, and to keep pushing yourself to get to where you want to go. So thank you very much for being here tonight. I appreciate that. Okay. Thank you.